Bridges and tunnels, are there any public speakers? Mr. Bowden.
Hi. Got a whole list of things to talk about today, and what I'm going to wind up talking about wasn't on the list. Mitch, you really changed the world today. Congratulations. You started talking about the control of the railroad tracks going to Coliseum. You're absolutely correct. And you were talking about Penn State, and somebody was talking, Chuck was talking about Penn Station. Who controls Penn Station? Polly? You got a part in this too, of course. How can the streets of New York City be controlled by New York City DOT, New York State DOT, the MTA Board Authority, everybody having a different set of rules? If you're interested in safety, you have to create what Mitch suggested, a unified area to control the streets. You have to take away the control of the freight railroads and give it back to the passengers. There is absolutely no reason why you can't have passenger service to the Coliseum. You're absolutely correct. And that's the place to start because it's obvious. So keep it up. You did good on that one. And translate it right across to everything else. I came across the Triborough Bridge the other day. It's Triborough Bridge. I'm old. They have this beautiful sign up there, electronic, with promoting New York State. Excellent. This is all about developing the economy of New York State and making it an appealing place for people to come. The signs are easy to read. They're clear. New York State's putting these similar signs on the side of the road. They're black signs with white lettering. Impossible to read. The signs the governor putting up, and they're going up all over the state, are excellent. They're promoting the state of New York, our economy. That's what we're supposed to be doing. The federal government says, oh, those signs are not legal, we don't like them. And the federal government is wrong. Who's going to stand up and say, hey, feds, wake up. People read white signs with nice letters on them, not black signs that you can't read. That's thinking that's outdated. So, Mitch, you started the ball. Don't let it drop. Chuck, New York City needs to control Penn Station. Figure out how to do it. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes in my lifetime. They were the things I thought at the time were correct, but turned out to be, in today's economy, wrong. So I have to stand up and say, yes, what I did 5 years ago or last week was right when I thought I did it, but in retrospect, in today's economy, it's no longer correct. You have to take back control of the freight lines and use them for public transportation, exactly as Mitch said this morning. Thank you, Mitch.
Any other speakers? You have the minutes before you in the book. Are there any comments or corrections? May I have a motion to approve? Second. All those in favor, aye. Contrary-minded, abstention, done. Committee work plan. Any changes to the work plan?
There are no changes to the committee work plan.
Okay. Do I need a motion on that? No, I don't think so. Report on operations. Ooh. Can I just make an introductory comment? You want to say something? Go ahead, say something.
Good morning.
Welcome.
I'd like to begin today by saying that I appreciate the opportunity to serve as acting president of MTA Bridges and Tunnels. I look forward to working with this committee and board members, as well as the Bridges and Tunnels employees, who work very hard to provide a vital service to the entire metropolitan region. I also appreciate the support of the interim executive director and the acting chairman and the chairman of this committee as we advance the priorities of Bridges and Tunnels. It's an exciting time to be part of an organization during this transformative change, implementing the governor's visions of open road tolling and the new aesthetic for the New York crossings. We will be going live with ORT in the Rockaway Bridges at the end of the month on April 30th. Today, I'd also like to say a few words about an outgoing MTA Bridges and Tunnels family member, Gavin Masterson. Gavin is retiring May 1st after a remarkable 27-year career with Bridges and Tunnels. He started as a contract manager and advanced to his current position as Chief Procurement Officer, where he oversees the major maintenance, capital, and service programs. Throughout his career, Gavin has made tremendous contributions to this agency and our customers, and on behalf of everyone at Bridges and Tunnels, we thank you for your service.
Report on operations.
The report on operations begins on page 18. Traffic was lower in February with 21.6 million crossings as compared with 22.4 million crossings in February 2016. Last year was a leap year with the 29th day in February accounting for most of the decline. Snowfall in February 2017 was 10.3 inches, while February 2016 had 5.6 inches. Easy Pass volume increased by 1.8% in February 2017 as compared to February 2016, while crossings using cash and other payment methods declined 11.9% for the month. Passenger car travel was up 0.2%, and other vehicle travel declined by 3.2% from February 2016. Preliminary monthly traffic figure for March 2017 is 4.3% less than the same period last year. Winter Storm Stella, in anticipation of blizzard-like conditions, resulted in a decline of more than 900,000 vehicles traveling across our facilities, accounting for most of the decline. This ends the report on operations.
Any questions, comments? All of you will have noticed on page 31 that the statistics on safety leave a great deal to be desired, and that collisions continue to increase. Our new acting president has asked that we defer till next month, when he has had an opportunity to complete a study ongoing before we engage in a discussion on that. Any problem with that? Okay. Do you have anything to add to it? Safety, anybody else?
We'll go ahead with the safety report.
Yeah.
Okay. The report on safety is illustrated on page 34. The 12-month rolling average of the customer collisions rate per 1 million vehicles for this reporting period increased from 7.69 in January 2017 to 7.74 for February 2017. This continues to trend at a slightly higher rate this year as opposed to the 12-month period ending February 2016 of 6.03. Also, the 12-month rolling average for injury collision per 1 million vehicles increased from 1.12 in January 2017 to 1.14 in February of 2017. This is slightly higher as compared to the 12-month customer injury rate of 1.0 for the period ending February 2016. As per the committee's request during last month's meeting, we have taken steps based on data analysis. As a result, we have additional information. Please see page 1 of total collisions and collision rate million vehicles for rolling year March 2016 to 2017. Pat?
Zuckerman. It's not in the book.
We have a copy of it.
Sure. It is.
Okay. Page 1 breaks down the 12-month rolling average for collisions by each facility. Varying complexities at each of our sites lends to the disparity among the rates. Whether it be the challenge of changing traffic patterns, physical characteristic changes, or the impacts of off-property conditions, we are addressing all with respect to our collisions. For example, at the Verrazano Bridge, we are challenged on weekends with backups from the Belt Parkway onto the bridge exit ramps, increasing rear-end collisions in that area in the eastbound direction. While at the UL Cary Tunnel, we are currently challenged with evolving traffic patterns and a midday two-way traffic operation to support the reprofiling, paving, and infrastructure work in progress. Page 2 updates the highest accident-prone location at each of our facilities since we last reported to the committee in October of 2016. 5 of the 6 locations saw a decrease in collisions. While we will continue to work on the one location, as well as others we have identified as emerging collision-prone locations. On page 3, we continue to collect, analyze, and correlate data to better understand the problems at each of the sites and implement both short-term and long-term solutions, and in some instances have already implemented modifications for improvement, such as I-678 pavement markings at the Bronx-Whitestone Bridge to align drivers and to avoid last-minute lane changes, as well as movement of Jersey barrier and extended delineation at the RFK Bridge, Deegan-Bruckner split, as also to prevent unsafe lane changes. Dan will further detail his deployment of resources based on data.
Thanks, Pat. Our strategies also consist of targeted enforcement efforts. These efforts are specifically geared toward unsafe driver behaviors, such as speeding, disobey of traffic control devices, unsafe lane changes, and cell phone use. By using the data, we are redeploying our special operations highway units and utilizing our facility-based enforcement resources to the areas of increased collision activity, which include specific times of the day and specific days of the week. We are also looking at historical data to deploy enforcement resources based on seasonality and regional schedule events. For the first quarter 2017 versus first quarter 2016, we have seen an increase of 20% in summonses given and a 14% increase in arrests by our officers. We will continue to analyze and identify these trends based on the data to better understand the issues contributing to an increase in these customer collisions. Eric will now continue with the safety report.
To continue with the safety report, the 12-month average of employee lost time injury rate per 200,000 employees decreased from 6.7 January 2017 to 6.6 February 2017. But this is higher than the rate for the period ending February 2016 of 4.8. Approximately 44% of the aforementioned lost time injuries occurred from July through September 2016. The last 5 months ending with February 2017 have experienced a rate decrease of 65% in comparison to the peak third quarter of 2016. In regards to employee lost time injuries, we are currently analyzing incident data to determine if causation is based on unsafe acts or unsafe conditions. We are continuing to focus our efforts on the following: safety committees, joint task force, daily inspections, root cause analysis of employee incidents, and job hazard analysis. Here ends the report for safety. Is there any further questions?
Now that open road tolling has been, and the plazas have been removed from the Henry Hudson Bridge, has there been an analysis or an examination of reduced collisions as a result?
We're actually collecting data now on that. While at the Henry Hudson, we're still actually doing some work on the lower level for work there. There's still some islands. And the 2 tunnels actually are still getting reprofiling and repaving. So I don't think we're there yet at the final design, but February was extremely encouraging for us at the Queens Midtown Tunnel for the decline there as we've stabilized the traffic, the channelization there. So it's been a little more repetitive and consistent for our customers. And we've seen a February rate there, lowest of many months. So it's encouraging as the ORT. So we'll get the...
Mr. Zuckerman?
Mr. Mulligan, I'm encouraged by your presence here today and your commitment to looking at this, both things you've said publicly and things you've said privately. I would like to state that I guess I joined this committee last June, and every single month since I joined this committee, I've seen a material increase in collisions. And every month for the previous year before I joined saw a material increase in collisions. We're now at an increase of 34% over November 2015, and not one month has it subsided. Every month it's up. I appreciate the diagnostic. I will abide by your request to not ask any questions until our next month. I appreciate your diligence, but your management team has to be committed to changing this because these increases predate open road tolling. That is not the sole answer. It can't be the answer alone because that wasn't even a phrase. We were talking about maybe exception of Henry Hudson when this started. So your attentiveness to this is appreciated, and your diagnostic is something I look forward to seeing.
Let me add a request when we do address this next week, next meeting. I'd like to know, of the collisions, what percentage were rear end and what percentage was sideswipe? If the rear end is the predominant number, then you obviously have a question as to the adequate spacing of cars, and the question would then be, what, if anything, can be done to make drivers aware that they need to leave at least one or more spaces between themselves and the car in front of them. So let us have that statistic, please, if you have it.
We will have that. And just to respond, we're welcome to take questions today. I just wanted to make the committee aware that in terms of a full and robust action plan in response to these problems, we're still doing analysis. It's a multifaceted problem. The more we understand all facets of the problem, the better we can tailor a full and robust action plan. Doesn't mean we're waiting to take action. As you heard today, we have taken action, and we will continue to do so. But more information will emerge as we get a greater understanding of the issues that we're dealing with.
With regards to employee accident reports, there was an increase. That was somewhat substantial. Why is that?
That's a that is an issue that we're addressing as well. I'm relatively new to bridges and tunnels. I've been here for the last, roughly the last quarter. I have had the opportunity to work with my staff as well as union delegates and look at our operations as well as our facilities. And during the last few months that I've been performing this analysis, I haven't found anything that's ostensibly unsafe. Have we had findings? Yes, absolutely. But are the findings of a level of severity that warrants the experience and the injury rate that we're experiencing? That is the question that we need to explore. We're looking at peaks. So in third quarter of 2016, there was a peak. And then there was a significant drop between that peak and to where we are today. Well, what happened? Did we all of a sudden become more safe? I don't think we became more safe. There's an inherent reason why these peaks are occurring. And when we report to you next month, and I'll say it now, March was a bad month. Maybe there was some issues related to weather. I'm not necessarily sure if that was the root of the issue. But there are other factors that are involved, whether it's behavioral, whether it's potentially cultural, environmental, a combination of the three. And I'm not necessarily sure if we can identify the root of the issue because many of our injuries are such of a non-specific soft tissue type origin, and trying to tie those particular injuries to an actual event related to the workplace has been difficult. So that's why in my report I had described some key programmatic aspects to deal with this issue, which has to which comes from a unified response to make sure that management is engaged with the employees and making sure that the dialogue that's provided to the employees are specific to our injury profile, as well as having a level of supervision that corresponds to the specifics and the particulars of our injury profile. I feel that only from a unified response, looking at this from a systematic perspective, can we get a handle on trying to drive the injuries down. I'm as frustrated with this as anyone else. I'm sure that you and I can sense from board and previous meetings that this is a quandary that's been brought up. And all I can say is at this point we're trying to analyze what that route is and see if we can get a better fix on that route and provide corrective action based on that route.
February EasyPass report begins on page 34. Our EasyPass market share was 87.9% in February, which is the highest one-month market share ever, and 1.7% higher than the year before. Average weekday market share growth at the tunnels where marketing efforts have been targeted for ORT was around 3.3% over the prior year. Market shares for the two tunnels, HCT and QMT, were 95.4% and 94.5% respectively. We had 5 facilities that were above the 90% market share level on an average weekday. That's the two tunnels, Henry Hudson Bridge, Marine Parkway, and Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Almost 19,500 EasyPass accounts were opened in February. This concludes the EasyPass report. If there are no questions, I'll move on to the next, which is the financial report. The financial report begins on page 40. Toll revenue year-to-date in February was $270.2 million, which is 2.8%, or $7.5 million better than budget. Traffic in February was up against budget by 4.3%, or 1.8 million crossings. Preliminary numbers for March indicate that air traffic is at 24.58 million vehicles, which is down 3.5% against plan due to Winter Storm Stella. And correspondingly, the preliminary toll revenue for March is $150.5 million, which is 7.9 million, or 5% lower than budget. The report on expenses. Total expenses were $72.2 million through February, which is about 4.8 million, or 6.3% lower than planned. Labor costs were lower by about 4.3 million, or 8.8%, primarily due to payroll vacancies. Non-labor costs were 2.1% less than planned, or $600,000, due primarily to the timing of expenses in maintenance and other operating contracts category. Our overtime is down 7.7% against budget, and that is about $400,000. Our support to mass transit was more than $151 million in February, which is $14.1 million, or 10.3% better than planned. This concludes the financial report. If there are no questions, I will go to the 2016 year-end operating results. This begins on page 54. We've reported much of this information to you already over the last couple of months, but I'm going to briefly summarize. Toll revenue for the year was nearly $1.87 billion, which is 0.1%, or $1.2 million, better than our final estimate. Traffic was up 0.8% against the final estimate. Total non-reimbursable expenses were $464.9 million, which were $30.9 million, or 6.2% lower than our final estimate. This was due to lower non-labor costs that were primarily resulting from lower costs in the maintenance and other operating contracts categories, and lower expenses for professional service contracts. Lower labor costs were $4.6 million below the final estimate, or 1.9%, due to lower payroll expenses and lower overtime costs. In 2016, non-reimbursable overtime came in at $23.6 million, which is 10.2%, or $2.7 million better than planned. Our support to mass transit was $1.126 billion, which is $61.2 million, or 5.8% better than our final estimate. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, we now go to the final review of 20. Oh, you did the operating results, right? So now we're ready for procurements.
Capital.
Oh, the capital program. Who's that? Okay.
The report on the capital program begins on page 82. In March, there were 34 commitments made in the amount of $141.9 million. This compares to a monthly plan calling for 11 commitments with a value of $82.5 million. Major commitments in March include over $88 million in open road tolling related commitments at Verrazano, RFK, Bronx Whitestone, Throgs Neck, Rockaway bridges, as well as a design build award for fire standpipe installation at the RFK bridges. Year to date, 69 commitments totaling $189.8 million have been made, which is 36% of our $526.9 million annual commitment plan. This compares to a planned cumulative year-to-date amount of 37 commitments and a value of $154.9 million. There were no planned or actual completions made this month. There were 12 task-level closeouts in March totaling $9.8 million, and year-to-date there have been 33 task-level closeouts totaling $86.5 million. Unless there are any questions, that concludes the report.
Good morning. Procurement starting on page 97. There are a total of 10 procurement actions. There is one non-competitive procurement this month. The non-competitive procurement is a modification to an agreement with the City of New York and Police Department for funding to support additional traffic enforcement agents on city streets adjacent to construction projects at our facilities in the ceiling amount of $7 million. There are non-competitive procurement actions and there are no ratifications. One is a new award, a competitively solicited personal service contract for design and construction support services for wind studies and miscellaneous structural repairs at the RFK Bridge for a 2-year, 3-month period in the negotiated amount of $3,439,915. There are 8 procurement modifications, 7 of which are ORT related. 3 are for personal service modifications, 1 for funds to support the Conduit Customer Service Center's implementation of open road tolling transactions at our 6 remaining toll facilities, which will go live this year through the contract expiration in September 2020, in an amount of $150,730,274. 1 is for additional design and construction support services at the RFK Bronx Plaza to support open road tolling implementation in the negotiated amount of $2,690,499. And 1 to add funding for additional construction inspection services at the RFK Manhattan Plaza as a result of the additional work required to implement open road tolling. That's in the negotiated amount of $824,073. There are 5 public work procurement modifications, 1 for Phase 2 ORT work at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, for toll booth demo and other civil, structural, and electrical work in the negotiated amount of $13.725 million, 1 for additional ORT civil, structural, and electrical work at the RFK Manhattan Plaza in the negotiated amount of $6,042,780. There is also 1 for work at the Ucari Tunnel associated with the architectural enhancements of the plazas and ORT gantries, as well as the long lead materials fabrications to complete the Morris Street pedestrian overpass, as well as tunnel transition zone waterproofing in certain locations in the negotiated amount of $4,241,583. We are also amending a design-build contract at the Marine Parkway and Cross Bay Bridges to allow for necessary redesign and installation work in order to complete the ORT roadway work in the negotiated amount of $1.184 million. And the final modification is non-ORT related, but a reconciliation of unit quantities and adds certain necessary work to complete the new ramp locations at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, as well as widen the approach ramps to facilitate the addition of a 7th lane to operate as an HOV lane. And that's in the negotiated amount of $796,439. The total amount for these modifications is $180,235,000, and the total value of all procurements is $190,675,000. Unless there are any questions, these procurements are described in detail in the enclosed staff summaries.
Questions? Comments? I have one. When will you finish, or when do you anticipate finishing the work on the RFK Bridge?
The ORT related?
There are several projects on the RFK
The Manhattan portion.
The Manhattan portion, the replacement of the Manhattan approach ramps, that's a capital project that is the substantial completion will be this summer, most likely before July. The original schedule on that actually was December, so the contractor is ahead of schedule to complete that. They have the second of two stages to do on the sort of onbound ramp from 125th Street onto the bridge, so we expect that to be done at the latest July. Which is
This year.
This year.
That's good news. I think that's it, right? Anything else? Yes. Wait, Commissioner.
Sorry, I had one question. Tim, this is for you. I have a letter here. It's actually from Don to New York City Community Board 6 on, I'm sure you've seen it, on the issue of the MTA potentially studying two-way tolls on the Verrazano, and just wanted to, if you're prepared to do that, talk a little bit about what you all have planned. I think it talks about looking at effects on Staten Island Expressway, BQE, Port Authority, and New Jersey crossings. I'd like to add on to that list city streets, because the one-way tolling policy has a big effect on streets in Brooklyn, Canal Street in Manhattan. So I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that a little bit. I'm sure the committee would find it an interesting topic.
We've received requests from the congressmen and community members, as well as the community board, to study two-way tolling. As you're all aware, that requires an act of Congress, right?
To fix it, not to study it.
To fix it, right, not to study it. And as Don indicated in his letter, we're willing to study it, so we're currently considering that request to study it, and we'll make you aware if we make a decision to study it.
Well, Don's letter says MTA will be looking at the potential revenue and traffic impact of a return to two-way tolling on the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge. Specific issues to be considered include commercial, et cetera, et cetera. So he makes it sound like you all have committed to doing it, and I think our community board took it as such. Is that not an accurate interpretation of this letter?
We are willing and able to study those, mention those factors, and when we institute that study or when we begin it, we'll certainly consult with you, get your input about city streets impact and the other things retaining to that scope. We have not initiated a study or announced that we're doing a study at this point. We're still considering those requests, and we'll move forward appropriately.
Okay. I would just say the letter seems to imply you all are doing it. So
I think we're very close.
Okay. Can you all keep the committee informed of your deliberations? I think it would be a useful thing to study, knowing full well that it would ultimately take an act of Congress to. But I think before we could ever even talk to anyone in Congress about doing it, it would be good to know what the effects would be.
I assume, Polly, and I assume the assumption is that open roll tolling will change the nature of people's habits.
Right.
I assume that's the point here.
Could you, Tim? Maybe could you commit to giving everyone on the board a copy of the letter, just to read?
Certainly.
What it says. This is from Don. As you've noted, the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge will convert to cashless toll collection this summer in accordance with the governor's plan for all MTA bridges and tunnels to operate cashless tolling. I assure you we'll be closely monitoring issues related to revenue, expense, toll enforcement, and of course traffic in a cashless tolling environment at each of our facilities. In addition, MTA will be looking at the potential revenue and traffic impact of a return to two-way tolling at the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge. Specific issues to be considered include commercial vehicle routes, et cetera, et cetera. It sort of goes on from there. So this is, I would...
Why would they want two-way tolling?
Because there's a perverse incentive now for vehicles who may be coming from New Jersey to Manhattan to route themselves through Staten Island, the BQE, and across, and then to go across Canal Street. You can avoid paying tolls coming through Staten Island, and then you avoid paying tolls going into New Jersey. So it's produced a distortion, I think, but I mean, again, I think it requires study. It's produced a distortion potentially in the way particularly trucks operate in and around the city.
I'll look forward to that answer.
We'll show the letter.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to approve the,
Oh,
you have to approve the procurements.
Motion to approve.
I move the procurements.
All those in favor? Contrary?
Boom.